Hi everyone, welcome to the VAK Indian History Podcast. I'm Utkarsh.
Namaste, Sumedha, your friend from Switzerland.
And today we're going to go to a topic that avoids politics, geopolitics, and stuff altogether and
Yes,
go back into the deep, embracing realms of history.
yes.
And this is quite literally embracing because what we're talking about embraces us in the world all around us. And I'm talking about what may appear to be a very, very modern phenomenon, a very, very modern thing, which is steel, all the steel that surrounds us in our buildings, in our devices, maybe in our cars, definitely. But steel has an interesting history. And as with most things, there is not just a connection, but a very deep role of India. So we thought we should talk about it because one, nobody thinks about this. Steel probably is associated more with the Industrial Revolution, Europe's dominance. There's even a famous book by somebody called, what's it called? Guns, Germs, and Steel, right? Which kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
explains
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
explains
Jared
basically
somebody.
how
Yeah.
Jared Diamond, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm. Yes.
right? So we want to set the record straight on steel. And I wanted to basically ask a couple of questions and I'll let you take it from the way you seem appropriate. One is when was what is steel? Because some of us may not. I mean, I kind of know it because I think I paid attention in class five, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I know wrong. But what exactly is steel? Why is it essentially we differentiate it from iron? And then linked to this, when do we start seeing steel getting coming becoming part of the human story and indeed part of the Indian story?
Okay, as always, Utkarsh, you throw a lot of questions, and then we have to
Oops.
unpack those questions, and that makes our episode. No worries. That makes our episode. And as far as politics goes, our last episode has not been watched by too many people, so I am definitely a little cast down. I think there was some problem with the algorithm. It didn't let all of you watch it. We had done it on great power rivalry in the 20th century and compared it with Chandragupta and Seleucus. So it is interesting. All those people who missed it, please do go back and take a look at it. I'm sure you'll
Absolutely.
love it. Yeah, I'm sure you'll love it. Even though YouTube has somehow, I think, blocked it or not allowed us to show it everywhere, I think you'll like it. Now, as far as steel is concerned, Utkarsh, we always tend to say iron and steel together. So we tend to say
Hmm.
iron and steel together because they are very closely linked. I am
Hmm.
no metallurgist, very, very far from it. And well, standard 10 science is perhaps as far as I go. But yes, I am a historian of science, so I'll try to give you a history of science. Roughly speaking, so iron is something that is found in nature. Iron ore is found in nature, it is purified and made into iron, and it is one of the markers of human civilization. So, we talk of the Stone Age where everything was made out of stone. Then we talk of the Bronze Age, which actually came before the Iron Age, or so goes mainstream narrative, about say 3300 BCE. That's about 6,100 years ago. And after the Bronze Age came the Iron Age, when humans learned how to use iron and use it for weapons, implements, agricultural implements, etc., etc. And that is supposed to be how much? It's about the Iron Age, say 1200 BCE. So that's about, say, three and a half thousand years ago, roughly. However, after this mainstream narrative of Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age was fixed, too many new discoveries have come which have completely disrupted this analysis. Again, Utkarsh, as I am quite tired of saying now, this whole idea of development came from what they had seen in Europe. So they tried to put that development of the way archaeological digs had shown evidence, etc., on also the Indian subcontinent and Asia, and it just doesn't work like that. Not at all. In fact, one of the most exciting new discoveries happened roughly about a year ago, I think January last year. There is a place called Sivagalai in Tamil Nadu. This is on the river Thoothukudi. And in this settlement, have been found what is now said to be the oldest Iron Age site ever. So mark my words, what am I saying? That it was in India that the Iron Age started. Earlier, it was
How
supposed to
old
be
is how
Turkey.
old is the site? How old is the site?
So this site is between 2800 to 3200 BCE. So it's about,
Okay.
I'm going to show you something, Utkarsh, which I
Hmm.
think you will
Hmm.
find interesting. After this Sivagalai was found,
Hmm.
people started remembering a lot of other discoveries that have come in the last 10 years, which are much, much older than the 1200 BCE that is supposed to be the start of the Iron Age. You have lots of places, and I'm going to show you a map which will give you a mapping across the Indian subcontinent of these very, very old Iron Age sites. So here goes. Okay, sorry, I was just trying to share. So, can you see a map, Utkarsh?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and all the words on it may not be very clear because there's a lot, there's too much. So I just want you to look down right at the tip of the Indian peninsula. There is this place Sivagalai. Can you see Adi
Hmm.
Chandalur and Sivagalai?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You see the dates, it is 3345 2427 BCE.
Hmm.
So that is roughly between 4 and 5,000 years. More than that, actually, much more than that.
Hmm.
Uh, Almost like 6,000 years. And I want you to look at all these other sites. There's a concentration of sites in the south, and as we go along, I will talk more about it. There is
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
here
Hmm.
are in near the Godavari River, also in Hyderabad and near the Godavari River. This is Telangana. This is today's Karimnagar district, and earlier
Hmm.
it was called Kotilingal, that place. That's here. Can you see my mouse? That was here.
Yeah, I can see your mouse. Yeah.
And just look at this right side. This is Panduraja Dibi. All of you who had seen our Harappan episodes, three of them, will remember this Pandu Raja DB is one of the oldest Harappan sites found. It is, again, it changed the whole chronology of the Indus Valley or Saraswati Sindhu civilization because earlier it was thought it had moved from the west to the east. But this is one of the oldest eastern sites of the Harappan civilization, older than many of the western sites. And over there also you find between 1257 and 1234 BCE, you find Iron Age implements and an Iron Age settlement. The whole name of this map is Iron Age sites with radiometric dates. So these are pretty much to be relied on. These are not guesses. Insofar as radiometric dating is accepted, well, there are a few problems with it, but on the whole, I think we can go along with it. Whenever there are problems, they are highlighted, but on the whole, we can go with it. So whenever there are radiometric dates, we can more or less understand that this is it. This Sivagalai, it was found only a year ago, and it has, as you can imagine, created a huge, huge, what can I say, ripple effect in the entire archaeological world. Because now it seems that it was not in Turkey. There was a place called Karman Kalehoyuk in Turkey, where the oldest iron was found, which was 2200 to 2000 BC. So now you see this has gone to the 4th century BCE from the 3rd century BCE. And iron, again, remember, Utkarsh, there are two types of iron. One is meteorite iron, which is just what, if there have been meteor showers in some areas, people have collected that iron and made things of it. That is meteorite iron. That is not what we're talking about. We are talking of iron extracted from iron ore. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
we are talking of certain methods through which it was done and extraction of it. So you find those old methods of heating the iron ore. You find some slag. Slag is the waste that remains after you extract the iron. You find all those things over there. Will tell us that, and all this is basically for listeners, that when you read dates of Iron Age implements or the coming of the Iron Age to different countries, you must not overlook this new evidence. That's one of the reasons why we do this podcast. We try to be as up to date as possible, give you new evidence which emerges, and we also try to analyze that evidence for you. So, one, of course, is that this whole division between Bronze Age and Iron Age doesn't seem to be correct. Because both these metals are being used at the same time, it is very difficult to say, okay, this is it. This was the time when iron was first introduced. Because if you also find iron 3800 BCE, and that is also the time of the Bronze Age, can you make a distinct division? At least for Asia, for the Indian subcontinent, Turkey, China, India, all these places have old Iron Age settlements. So you cannot make that kind of distinction for definitely India and also for Asia. So that's something about iron which I wanted to tell you. Before we move on to steel, there are some very interesting things about iron. Do you want to see, by the way, Utkarsh, the kind of things that have been found in Sivagalai?
Yeah, sure. Visuals are
Yeah,
always great.
yeah. So let's try and see some of the things which have been found. I hope I will be able to. No, this is not the one. Sorry, this is not the one. And I am also, going to show you some of the oldest steel sites. Okay, so
Hmm.
now I hope I will be able to get it. So can you see this? These are the implements which have been found.
Yep. Looks
Yeah.
like knives. What is
Yeah.
that on the left?
I think knives, daggers,
Hmm.
and the thing on the left, well, I'm sorry, I cannot recognize it. And this is an official issue of the government of Tamil Nadu. I tried very
Hmm.
hard to find it, but it's just not opening. I think that site is not working very well. So I cannot give you a
Hmm.
description without reading. But this is
Hmm.
one look at it. Utkarsh, it's
Hmm.
been a matter of great publicity in Tamil Nadu. So what are those?
Hmm.
Arrowheads, rings, chisels, axes, swords.
Hmm.
Thoothukudi district. And can you see this little pot over here?
Yeah.
So these are the kind of implements, clay implements used for making this iron.
Hmm.
Okay. So this is obviously an article, and any one of you who wants to can read this article whenever they want to read it. It will give you details of pictures and what exactly was found. So this is, doesn't this make it more real? You can see the things that were found, you can see how they were made, and you can see the radiometric dating, which tells you that they were 5,300 years ago. So it all makes it very, very
So
legit.
what will your friend Niall Ferguson say if you tell him about this?
He'll probably refuse to believe it, Utkarsh. That is their first refuge. And in fact, even today, even though I tell you that this is radiometric dating, a lot of people are just not ready to accept it. Remember the episode we had done on Sinoli and the fact
Hmm.
that chariots were found,
Hmm.
800, 2400 BCE chariots. So there
Hmm.
are people like, Asko Parpola, etc., who, without even reading the actual evidence, they just read the newspaper reports and became all excited because their theories were falling down by the wayside.
Hmm.
So then, they try to poke holes and they say, no, no, we won't believe it. Niall Ferguson will probably dismiss it with contempt, the contempt that it deserves from him. Something of that kind.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
so
Good to know.
these are the kind of things which are the only things which will work now.
Hmm.
But what will happen, Utkarsh, is that over some time, maybe 5 years, 10 years, they'll have to accept it. There's no getting away from it. So they'll
Yeah.
have to accept it. It happens slowly. Like
Hmm.
Saraswati was a mythical river.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
we've done episodes on Saraswati. And we've shown you all kinds of current digital technologically aided evidence about the
Hmm.
existence of the Saraswati and the revival of Saraswati. So all these things, well, they take time, but I think they're going to change.
Hmm.
Now, there's one very interesting thing about Indian iron. So, Utkarsh, what is the one thing about iron? If you keep it for a long time, what happens?
Rusts.
Yes. But what if I told you that there is Indian iron which does not rust for thousands of years?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
There's one in Delhi, right? The famous
yes,
one.
yes. So, let's take a look at it. And let's take a look at all the other ones. There is another one at Dhar.
Hmm.
There are other ones at Konark. In fact, they're
Hmm.
spread all over, but I'm just going to share one bit of it, which will, where is it? Yes, this one. Let me share this article. I will show you images of the iron pillar. No, I'm sorry to just to make a mess of it, but yeah, here it is. So this is an image of the iron pillar.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can see it here.
Hmm.
So there's an inscription on it which is about Chandragupta Vikramaditya, who is Chandragupta the second of the Gupta
Hmm.
Empire. There is a
Hmm.
panegyric which is about him, and it faced a temple, a Vishnu temple. But of course, you know what would have happened to the Vishnu temple. I need not say it here. If it is in Delhi, it was broken down by the Islamic invasion. Then, why is it that it has not rusted? So for many years, this was a big mystery. But now the kind of thing which has been explored, because I think they've taken little pieces, they do some kind of
Hmm.
analysis to look into the structures, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it is because of the uh, a presence of certain different chemicals, and one of the main chemicals seems to be phosphorus. It's because of phosphorus. So can you imagine what was one of the earlier reasons given for iron not rusting? Before they knew the reasons, that this is a hot tropical climate, so it will not rust. Two, there is no pollution here in India, so it will not rust. So this was what was said in the 40s and 50s.
Well, it's been through the torture test of pollution since it's in Delhi.
Yes,
So
it is.
that
It is
theory falls
currently
flat.
going through the torture test. So
Yes.
this is a description of, this was done by IGCAR, of the
Hmm.
microstructural analysis of the pillar. Now this is
Hmm.
one. There is another very big one, which is the one at Dhar. No, this is not the one I want to show you. There is, do you remember the uh, Samrangan Sutradhar, Utkarsh?
No, I don't
This
actually.
was, this was when we had looked at Vimans. So this was written by
Hmm.
Raja Bhoj of Dhar.
Hmm.
And this Raja Bhoj of Dhar had Samrangan Sutradhar is a kind of manual of all kinds of mining, metallurgy, technology, etc. So we had looked at
Hmm.
the way in which Vimans or flying machines could be made and their fuel, etc. That was from Samrangan Sutradhar, written by Raja Bhoj of Dhar. It is the same Raja Bhoj of Dhar. This is where, in his kingdom, this was the other Dhar pillar which was found. It is double the size of the Delhi pillar. But
Hmm.
again, our good friends, the Mughals, tried to uproot it and put it somewhere else, so it broke into three pieces. And all
Hmm.
those three pieces are today you will find it in Dhar and placed in something which is now called the Lat Masjid. So obviously, the temple where it was made has now become a masjid.
Hmm.
Then these are, can you see some more iron beams? These are from Konark.
Yeah.
These
Okay.
are from the Sun Temple of Konark.
Hmm.
So, what can I say? What I am trying here is to give you a visual experience of all the metallurgy which surrounded us. We've seen
Hmm.
some evidence of old iron age settlements, and I want to show you things which were made of that iron. And all these places Dhar or Delhi or Konark, these pieces of iron have not rusted for 1600, 1800 years. So just imagine how long that is and what an achievement that is. Because after all, why did we need steel? We needed steel, one, of course, is because of its high strength and also because
Hmm.
it doesn't rust. These were the two reasons why we needed to make iron into steel. Otherwise,
Hmm.
we could
Hmm.
have gone on using iron. But
Hmm.
here you have iron which doesn't rust. And there is a lot of research being done by a lot of people. I'll put some of the papers in the chat box. I'll put some of the papers. You can, for those of you who are metallurgists or chemists, or, well, I don't know who know all
For
this.
the one metallurgist watching this and the two chemists, please say hi.
Yes. And we are neither metallurgists nor chemists, but just
Hmm.
generally very interested in the past. So maybe the metallurgists can tell us something new. But there is definitely a great deal of research going
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
So this was as far as iron,
Irons.
the
Yeah.
Iron Age is concerned. Do I want to say anything else about iron? I'll tell you something about iron, maybe a little later. Maybe we can move on now to what you wanted to know more about steel, right? What was your question about steel?
No, no. First was just describe what steel is.
Okay.
And the second one is when did we start seeing steel in the human project and indeed in India?
Yeah. So steel is when you add carbon to iron. So normally what you can do is the more carbon you add, the stronger it becomes, but the more brittle it becomes. So if it
Hmm.
becomes brittle, then it cannot be used for construction, etc. Therefore, there is a kind of limit between 0.2% to 2.1% is how much you can add. And 2.1 is like really, really high. You need very what I can say is today's technology, and even then, 2.1% is not always achievable. So it is somewhere between zero point 0.2 and 1. That is what is normally there in steel. So who do we think of when we think of steel and iron? Of course, we don't think of anybody from India. We think of Benjamin Huntsman in 1740. He was the first one, he says, to
Oh, is
make
it? I don't think of him. I don't know, but okay, sure. I
do
maybe I
you
don't know anything.
by any chance, Utkarsh, do you think of Sir Henry
Think of
Bessemer?
steel.
Sir
No.
Henry Bessemer? No, okay. So just open Wikipedia and Sir Henry Bessemer will be the one who will be given the credit for steel in 1835. So again, you see, it is the same
Oh,
18 and
that's
9.
very recent. Very
Very
recent.
recent. Yes, 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 very
Hmm.
recent. See, up till 1857, Indians were
Hmm.
still producing a lot of steel. But after
Hmm.
1857, all these were shut down, closed, finished because of the First War of Independence.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
did not want any steel to make weapons in the hands of Indians. So that is why, because your question always is, you always ask me, okay, so what happened? Where did it all go? This is where it went.
And the
This is
answer
what
always
happened.
leads back to the to the British Empire in one way
Yes,
or the
it
other.
does. Yes, it does. It does.
Hmm.
So there are some such fascinating. What is the limit to putting carbon? Because the more carbon there is, the greater tensile strength, the more durable it is. So, okay, go on putting iron, but you can't because then it becomes brittle and breaks. So, if you keep putting more and more iron, then it becomes carbon, it becomes cast
Carbon, yeah.
iron. Then it becomes cast iron. And cast iron is used for many other different things. China is a bit of an expert in cast iron and even in ancient cast iron, but that is used for different things because it is too brittle to be
Hmm.
used as a base for construction and definitely not for weapons. You can't
Hmm.
because they'll break. So then here we have the problem of steel. To make iron with more tensile strength, you need to change it. How do you change it? So some kind of processes have to be carried out on iron. How will these processes be carried out? Normally, it is going to be heat. It can be, it can go through some water, heat, etc., etc. So did these processes actually start? When did humans learn about these? So when humans learnt about this, seems to be in about 500 to 600 BCE, again in the southern part of India. So there is a place called Kodumanal. This is today in Tamil Nadu, very much there, but in 500 BCE, it was part of the Chera kingdom. And as part of the Chera kingdom, it was also close to a couple of Chera ports. Chera is, Kerala is basically the kingdom of the Cheras. But the Chola, Chera, Pandya have been compatriots, fighters, etc., for millennia. So territories have slipped out of this one's hands and gone into this one's hands, etc. But in 500 BCE, it was the Cheras. So this is the place where we find the first steel made in India. This steel was called by the Westerners as wootz steel, Wootz, wootz steel.
Mm.
It comes from the South Indian word in different languages, Telugu, Kannada, Tamil. It is either ukku or urku or ikku, and it is also traced to the Sanskrit word uch, which means uch koti, or a very good form of, probably they were trying to say iron or steel, good form. Iron is
Mm.
called ayas. In Sanskrit, it is
Mm.
called ayas, either ayas or Krishna ayas. So
Mm.
maybe they were trying to say Uchayas and it became woods, but it is traced to this word, which is
Mm. Mm.
ukku, ukku steel. And this is wood steel. And Utkarsh, have you noted the date? This is 500 BCE. So how many
Mm.
years ago is that? That's about
Two and a
2,600
half
years
thousand.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
two and a half
Mm.
thousand years ago. That is where the first construction of steel in the entire world was found. I'm going to share a look at the Kodumanal site for you. I think that will be interesting. Let's see if I can find it. I had opened it. No, let me just check for 1 minute where it is. Okay. I hope people will just have a little bit of patience with me because I open so many of these pages to show all of you that they sometimes get confused. Can you see Kodumanal now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a village in the Erode district in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. It is a flourishing
Mm.
ancient city called Kodumanal.
Mm.
Okay. These are some of, see, this is the place where steel was first made. There were also some beads, etc., found.
Mm.
So iron smelters of around 500 BCE made
Mm.
lots of things. What has been excavated there is also a sword bit, which contained graphite and forge welding of high carbon cutting edge. So it was celebrated for its trade, and it's because of this trade that a lot of this steel went around the world. Do you want to, everyone, please look at this. The first, in a way, you can say the first steel
Mm.
factory of the world. And I will use a word like factory because it was made on a very large scale and
Mm.
exported to all parts of the world. So now, who is the greatest warrior of the, you know, years before the present? Alexander the Great. So would you expect Alexander the Great to have some connection with this steel? Naturally, yes. It is even possible that the sword of Alexander was made of this same wood steel because there was a lot of trade between this part of South India and Greece and Rome. There was a huge amount of trade. So I'm going to show you two things. One is just a uh, a picture of, there's an old surviving picture of Alexander Not the most perfect one, but we
Picture.
can.
Oh, we took
Uh,
the photo of him.
Not a
Nice.
picture. No, sorry, sorry, sorry. No, no, sorry. I don't mean picture. I do not mean picture. I mean whatever, some kind of
Then we
representation.
need to have a different kind of episode.
Yeah. Or maybe let me show you something else. I will show you the sword of Alexander. It was called a Copis sword. So I will show you the sword of Alexander, and this sword would probably have been made of this wood steel. Can you see this one? Especially this one on sword is this one.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the picture I wanted to show you.
Uh, he has very
Not a
big eyes.
picture. Yeah, very peculiarly big eyes, but take be more interested in his sword, which is a little difficult to make out here.
What is that on
He's,
also on his neck? Is there a picture of something on his neck? Or is that
yeah, I wonder what this is.
another
No, I am
face?
afraid I can provide very few. I can provide very few inputs on this, but I can tell you more about the sword. This was
Hmm.
the shape. This was
Hmm.
called a copis, and it's very, very likely that this was made of that same
Hmm.
Damascus steel.
Okay.
And what else is the first story about wood steel in the entire world is from the annals of Alexander's war, because after he won the war and he defeated the Persians, what special gift did the Persians give him? They may have given him many things, but the most important thing was 100 talents of this wood steel that they themselves had imported from India. 100 talents means about 3,600 kg, so about 3.5
Hmm. Three.
tons.
Yeah.
So this 3.5 tons of this wood steel was given to Alexander as a gift, and it was something which he treasured more than all the other gold and whatever treasure, etc., that he found. So this is one of the first stories, oldest
Hmm.
stories regarding wood steel.
Hmm.
And the other stories actually we will come to. But first, let me show you something which is a bit of a timeline of wood steel. So I've told you the origin story. Now let me give you a
Hmm.
timeline. I have to, today I have so many visuals for you that it's becoming more and more difficult for me to keep it all sorted
Yes,
out. Let me just close the sites which I'm not using. Ah, okay, this one. I hope all these visuals are helping Utkarsh and not becoming confusing, in which case I will not
not
show
at
them.
all. No, no, they're good.
So look at this. Here, this is a book written by Dr. Sharda Subramanian. She is one of the first people who started doing this great research into wood steel, and she has written a number of technical books on it. Some are also technical as well as popular. This is one of them on wood steel. So this is 323. Here she says that Porus had gifted this to Alexander. Other accounts say that Persians had gifted it to Alexander. Then you find crucibles and high carbon specimens from South Indian, megalithic, and Iron Age horizons. Again, note Utkarsh, he wrote this book before the Kodumanal find. If you read later articles and books of hers, she will mention the Kodumanal find, which was
Hmm.
even earlier than this, which was 500 BC. So
Hmm.
then you can see that iron weapons were produced. It went to Alexandria, it went to Europe. I'm just doing a quick run through. And then, of course,
Hmm.
we come to that word, Damascus sword, which we will definitely look at in greater detail.
Hmm.
Then you see Saladin and Richard the Lionheart, I'll talk about them too. Then Russia. Blacksmiths of Russia produced bulat. What is bulat? Bulat is falad. What is falad? Falad is steel. So falad is the Indian word for steel. And it became bulat when it went to Russia. It was also
Hmm.
called Hindvi or Hinduani steel. And from Hindwani,
Hmm.
it became something else, which also we will talk about. So look at this. This is, I can again give the link to this
Hmm.
book, which people can read. I just want you to take a look at the timeline. Okay,
Hmm.
this timeline has technical things as well as literary things, and you can see the spread of the fame and the use of steel over here.
Hmm. By the way, I looked up wood steel on Wikipedia while you were searching. I'm
Hmm.
pleased to report that they are being accurate. They do say it is from southern India. So
Wonderful.
good job,
Wonderful. Yeah,
Wikipedia.
good job telling the truth for once. Yeah, they should be given one little golden star to put on
Gold
their
star.
chest. Yeah, one gold star. Like in nursery, if the child does something good, you give them a gold star. So
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
we'll give them a
And it even
wood steel
on a
star.
maybe on a site which you will probably talk about, Damascus steel, it calls it an early example of branding. People agreed the steel actually was developed somewhere else. So they are not
Yeah,
being
so
apologetic about it.
yes, yes, and actually that is a very, very good development, Utkarsh. And this has happened, I will tell you, in the last 15 years. When I started my whole journey as a historian, say 15, 20 years
Hmm.
ago, this was not so
Hmm.
accepted. Absolutely not
Hmm.
so accepted. It was there in academic journals, yes, even older, say 1930s, 50s academic journals, but definitely not accepted. So that's good
Hmm.
news. Plenty
Hmm.
of gold stars to hand around, perhaps. There is one more thing which I want to show you. If this
Hmm.
went everywhere, how did it go? So we will go back to our trade routes, and this time I will show you the actual map. It's an actual first century AD map, which we have talked about a number of times, shown you a number of times. We will show it to you again. This is the book which is called The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, which means the perimeter or periphery of the Indian Ocean. This was written by a Roman sailor, as you can see, of the first century. So he was doing all these sea voyages that you can see across the world. Again, Utkarsh, we think that globalization was invented in the 19th century, or maybe, if at all, then the Venetians are given some credit for it, that they were the first ones who
Hmm.
sailed everywhere. But just look at this. And,
Hmm.
I have so many anecdotes. For example, look at this. This is the Gulf of Aden here, and there's a tiny little island which you can't see here. It's hidden. It's called Socotra. I don't know if
Hmm.
can we see this tiny little thing. Okay, called Socotra. And as you can see, it is on the way to, what have I done? Yeah, that's okay. It's on the way to the Gulf from India, and it is on this whole Indian Ocean route. So, in
Hmm.
Socotra,
Hmm.
there is a cave which is called the Cave of Hawk. If you go inside that cave for till 1 kilometer and a steep walk up, you will find an old shrine. That shrine is also 500 BC. And that is an exemplification of, what can I say, a pan-global um, place of worship. Because over there, there are inscriptions of people from all across the world. There are offerings to gods of people. There are Hindus, Christians. There's no Islam, because remember, this is very, very old. And that
Hmm.
cave fell into disuse, I think, about, say, 300-400 CE, or maybe a little after that. So you have 200 offerings to Hindu gods and goddesses, but you also have others. And it's a place where everyone, all seafarers from across the world came, and when they had to wait over there before they could enter the Gulf of Aden, then they just stayed together, prayed together, and there was this coming together of people of different ethnicities and beliefs. So this is something which would be right after the heart of any liberal today, but it happened many, many, many thousands of years ago. Now I want you to look at here. Can you see Korkai? It is from here.
Where is
This
that, Karkai?
that is at the tip of India. Korkai here.
Oh, okay, got
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
And
Karkai,
can you
yes.
okay? And can you see Muziris?
Yep.
Yeah, Muziris. And there is one here which is not so clearly marked, but this is Machilipattanam. There's another one. And from here, you see where they are going. They are going to the Gulf, they are going to Africa, then they go up the Arabian Gulf, and they go into Europe. So it was here in this area that most of the first export of this steel went, this area. Now, here, what am I looking at now? I'm looking at Syria, Damascus, Jerusalem. This is the place where the Crusades were fought. So, if we just move on from the centuries before the Common Era to the centuries after the Common Era, when did Europeans again really come into contact with this steel? It was during the Crusades, by which time this wood steel had gone to this Gulf area, entrenched itself over there. As you say, it had been kind of
Hmm.
branded as
Hmm.
Damascene, Damascus steel, etc., the best steel in the world, etc., etc. And the Europeans came into contact with it over here during the Crusades. And during the Crusades, the fame and the power of the swords which were made by this wood steel or Damascus steel really shot through the roof. Let me show you this again here. Now this is a fictional thing. Okay, this is just
Hmm.
some battle between Saladin and Richard the Lionheart.
I'm
This is
sure they
Richard,
never came face to face like that, did they, in
probably
real life?
not, but anyway, who cares? See, this is the sword of Richard the Lionheart,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this is
No,
this one.
that's Lion. That is
Yes.
Richard Lionheart, right? That's Aladdin.
This is Richard the Lionheart and this is Saladin,
On
right?
the left, yeah. On the left, yeah, is Richard.
Can you see my cursor?
Yes, yes, that's Richard Lionheart.
Yes. And this sword is the one, this one,
Hmm. Hmm.
made from the steel of Damascus or wood steel or the steel of India.
Hmm.
And it is because of these that the fame of this particular Damascus steel really hit the roof. So, Utkarsh, there is something which was written in a book by Walter Scott, but it became so famous that it seems as though it was true. So, Walter Scott wrote a book called The Talisman in 1825, in which he had this
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
confrontation. Yeah,
Hmm.
confrontation. It was on the Crusades, and there was this confrontation
Hmm.
between Saladin and Richard the Lionheart. So Richard the Lionheart wanted to show him how strong I am, how good my
Hmm.
sword is. So he put a 1.5 inch bar of steel on a block of wood and just cut it through to impress Saladin. So Saladin was not impressed. He called for a silk pillow, the cover of a silk pillow.
Hmm.
Then he threw that silk up in the air and sliced it with his sword. Then he took off his shawl and threw it in the air and sliced it. His shawl was also obviously of silk.
Hmm.
So his point was that it's so sharp that it can
Hmm.
even slice through silk. And
Hmm.
obviously, in this encounter, Richard the Lionheart did not come off so well. In any case, of course, Richard, the so-called Lionheart, lost everything that he went to do in the Crusades. But that's another story. But this is a but Utkarsh, when I was growing up, I used to I mean I was a fan of Richard the Lionheart. He
Hmm.
was the embodiment of all kingly virtues, mixed up with Robin Hood stories and Richard the Lionheart and that evil King John. Oh my goodness, I
Hmm.
was really a fangirl. So that is the power
So,
of
so
stories.
perhaps the one good thing that has come from the TikTok generation where nobody has the patience to read anymore
Why is it
is
good?
that
Why
is
is
that
it
people
good?
don't people are not like you and me, we are quite, what should I say, because of all the reading we did when we were
Brainwashed.
young,
Tintin.
brainwashed, or rather we find all this very very Eurocentric, regardless of even us doing this podcast. I mean, our entire
Yeah,
upbringing is very, very Eurocentric, all the
absolutely.
stories. So for the younger folks, all they've seen is TikTok. So it's just about what's the flavor of the month. And
Oh,
that's a good
okay.
thing. One good thing about the TikTok generation.
I never imagined the day would come when we would be praising TikTok. Well,
Yeah.
okay,
Because I don't
yes,
think anyone under the age of 25 has heard of Richard the Lionheart, even maybe 35,
35
outside of the
maybe, yeah.
UK. Outside
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
UK, tough.
No, no, even inside the UK, Utkarsh. Whenever I
No,
meet people,
inside, obviously. Outside the UK, it would be tough, is what I'm saying.
no, but inside the UK also, they don't know all this any longer. They're not interested in
Mm,
their past at all.
mm,
The Battle of Agincourt and Richard, the other one. I am more interested in it because of Richard II, the play by Shakespeare.
mm,
But you don't
mm,
find people in the UK too interested in their past any longer. So
mm.
anyway, the hopefully the era of brainwashing is at an end, but Utkarsh, the era of misinformation is on our heads. So I don't know
Of
which
course.
is perhaps this is better. At least many narratives can fight for space, just like we are also
Perhaps.
fighting for space. So I showed you this story of wood steel, South
Mm,
India, Central India, even Rajasthan. Rajasthan has a very, very great tradition of making of metallurgy. We are talking about iron and steel today. There is Ahar near Udaipur. That is also one of the earliest places where iron age settlements were found. And Utkarsh, if we ever do a program on zinc, it is said that it is the metallurgists of Rajasthan who actually discovered zinc. They were the first to discover zinc. So if we
mm,
ever do a program on zinc, then we'll go into
mm,
detail about that. So what were the different names by which this was known? One was wood steel. It was also
mm,
known as Hindvi steel. It was also known as Hindwani steel, especially in Islamic literature. So you have people like Al-Baruni, Idrisi, Ashajr. These were people in the 6th century, 7th century, 8th century writing about steel. So, Utkarsh, I believe in a modern segue that there is something called Valerian steel in the Game of Thrones,
of
which is
course.
which is based on Damascus steel, is it? Am I right?
It's not based on anything. It's just one of those mythical steels that they have. But I guess, yeah, you could say it's
Yeah.
based on.
The idea
Yeah.
of this Valerian steel.
That is what your TikTok generation will know about. It'll be like, yes, the best steel is Valerian steel.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's why I mentioned it. Then it was also called Ceres steel. It was also called telling steel.
Mm,
So Ceres
mm,
is for the Cheras. I just showed you Kodumanal. And telling is for Telangana. There was, if you remember, there was in central India, Godavari
mm,
River, Karimnagar district,
mm,
lots of iron age settlements. Utkarsh, on an
mm,
aside, in my third book, Waters of the Mauryans, anyone who wants can read a lot of this. Iron was one of the mainstays of Mauryan supremacy, and the fight over iron was
mm,
extremely important even in their intra-kingdom politics. So, in the waters of the
mm.
Mauryans, I am actually dealing a lot with this. So, this episode and my research for my book actually came together. And it was also called Bulat in Russia, which comes from Folad. And can I tell you something very interesting? It is said that during his wars, Prophet Muhammad also had a sword made of Damascus steel. So he used to live in the
Mm,
7th century, at which time this was at its apogee. So I wouldn't be surprised.
mm,
Now, why is it that it became famous as Damascus steel? Because Damascus has a direct link with a place called, which they call Koch, which is actually Kutch. Kutch is in Gujarat. It is there
yep,
in the map we just showed you. I won't go back to
yep,
it again, but it's there in the
yep.
map that I showed you. So the steel was carried from Andhra Pradesh from over the Godavari River, then crossed through the Naneghat Pass in the Western Ghats, and then went to the western coastal ports, the most important of which was in Kutch, and then from there to Damascus. And the sheer volume of this export meant that not only that production was being carried out at really industrial levels, but that Damascus was also importing a lot for its own use. And
mm.
they could not make it. It was made only here, so they had to import it. They really had no other choice. And there were, I'll just give you some other little tidbits about this. Uh, in Pushkin's book, Alexander Pushkin, most people will know his name, under 35 at least. I don't know about the TikTok generation. He wrote a poem called Gold and Bulat. Bulat was this Fawlad, in which he sang
Sorry,
the praise.
Alexander Pushkin is those group of Russians who tried to. I'm just checking because it's not that as well known as you might think. Even I'm kind of trying to remember. Right? They tried to take. They were a group of wannabe revolutionaries, but they fell flat. Something like that.
Oh, and Pushkin is also famous as an author, as a
Is
writer.
it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's for me, that's his USP.
Is that the same? Is it the same Pushkin or different Pushkin?
I would think it is the same. I also need to check a bit, but I think it's the same
Yeah.
Pushkin. He
Okay.
wrote this thing called Gold and Bulat, in which he compared the
Okay.
two. And can you imagine that in Chechnya, it was equally
Mm,
popular, so popular that the Chechnyan word for man of steel became the best surname
mm,
you could have. So that's as far as Chechnya goes. Then I told you that there was something called the Hinduani steel was changed linguistically by the Italians into Ondanik because they could not
mm,
pronounce Hinduani. And our friend Marco Polo wrote a lot about Ondanik. So in the first millennium of the Common Era, first millennium before the Common Era, wood steel it ruled the world, it ruled the seas, it ruled the
mm,
wars.
mm,
And after the colonization period, when a lot of this dissemination happened, people also learned to build it. But still, between the 16th and 19th century, semi-industrial levels of steel production still happened in India, Utkarsh. A lot of it was still exported. Huge
mm,
amounts were still exported. And then came post 1857. After that, the idea was, of course, to shut down the local access to this kind of high grade metal. So all those places where it was produced, they were destroyed. What else was destroyed? I'll tell you one more thing, but I'm just mentioning it here without explaining it.
mm,
Biomass is used in India to make steel. I'll explain a
mm,
little more. So the access to the forests, which gave this biomass, that was stopped. Access to iron ore was stopped. So there was no way in which this steel could still be produced. Also, this went from guru to shishya to shishya to shishya. Remember, this was an old oral tradition. So when all this was stopped and production stopped, this knowledge slowly died out. But where are the only places where it has been still preserved and where we can see a reflection of the original way of producing wood steel? It is amongst some of the tribals of Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. So there are the Mundas of Jharkhand. They have
mm.
a very, very strong iron making tradition. Then you also have some of the other, who are they? The Agarias. I think these Agarias are of Rajasthan. They also have a very strong tradition.
Mm, mm.
So only survived in very small tribal pockets. You have not asked me a very obvious question as to what are the sources of this knowledge that we have so that we can know that, yes, this came
Mm.
from some Indian knowledge tradition, some IKS. You haven't asked me that question. But before you ask me that question, anything else on everything that we have spoken of as yet?
No, I'll just ask you that question and I'll answer it, right? It's obviously from all of Homer's works.
Oh, or was it Justin or was it Strabo? Could have been any of those. Who knows? No, so as usual, Utkarsh, no prizes for guessing the answer. We go back to the Rig Veda. And I'll tell you something interesting about the Rig Veda,
Hmm.
or rather, as it the links that we can find today. So there is a particular Munda way of making steel. So that way is actually by burning a particular type of wood and putting a particular type of dry twig and green leaves of a certain tree, which is called the tarvad tree. It's the Cassia auriculara. When you put this vegetation in that fire, then it goes up to the very high temperatures which are needed for this steel to be made. This is called crucible steel. It's made in a crucible, and it doesn't come in ingots. It's called bloomery steel. I think it comes in lumps. It doesn't come in ingots, and you have to make a lot of it
Hmm.
and add each level. For example, for those pillars, you would have to add each level one by one. You don't cast it in one go. So anyway, the green leaves and dry twigs of Cassia auriculara are used by the Munda tribe. And this is exactly the way in which the first book of the Rig Veda, the 112th Sukta, second shloka, tells you to make ayas. So this very interesting parallel between the ways in which knowledge was preserved in an official way and the way in which it was practiced is not very easily come by in today's age. We have forgotten everything, but this is one which has been very clearly brought out, and I would like to recommend the works of Ashok Nene. So Ashok Nene is a metallurgist, and he has a lot of not only modern knowledge but also ancient knowledge. You'll find his books on the internet on iron ore, on metallurgy, on all this, and you'll also find some of his lectures. And he also talks about the people, his guru and his guru's guru, who saved thousands of manuscripts in Sanskrit in which so much of this information is actually recorded. So that's Ashok Nene. If you look at the YouTube channel of AICTE, then you will find some of his lectures, and they will be extremely interesting. They'll tell you a lot more about details about iron making in India, the different types, and it was extremely sophisticated, Utkarsh. Extremely sophisticated. See, I think what happens is that in the past you did not have separated chemical compounds. So what did you do if you wanted to use urea? You use cow's urine. So in
Hmm.
today's world, it becomes like some kind of mumbo jumbo. Put cow's urine and newt size and lizard's tails and what have you, and it becomes something ridiculous. But you see, it is not ridiculous. Since we did
Hmm.
not have those chemical compounds separated and available in their pure form, they were used in the form in which they were found in nature, either
Hmm.
in biomass from plants or some animal bones or animal skin or flowers or whatever. And that to us has become a subject of jest, a subject of amusement, because we cannot imagine anything serious being done in that. The more I study about all this, for example, there are ways there's some kind of instrument through which you can measure the color of the flame which comes up when you burn certain chemicals. And if you measure the temperature, the color, etc., then you can know everything about that element. So that kind of thing is also given in traditional sources. But the only thing is that it will be written in a different way. The substances which are used will be different. For instance, different kinds of salts or different kinds of leaves and flowers will be used even for steel making. Even for steel making, some five different types of lavan were used. So all this, where do we find all this? I gave you the example of the Rig Veda. So there are Vedic and Puranic sources. So I keep telling you about the Ved and the Upved. So the Dhanur Ved is one of the Upvedas. It has this information. The original Dhanur Ved is no longer accessible. We have to reconstruct it, and some parts of it are there in some of the Purans. But in this Dhanur Ved, iron, steel, making of weapons, implements, agricultural implements, everything, all of it is there. And you have The methods and names of different metals, different alloys, how to extract them, how to process them, all of it is there. But it is only in Sanskrit and arcane terms. So in today's world, branding, the one who names it got it. So if it is
mm,
Bessemer's
mm,
method for steel production, it means that the West owns it. We never had anything to do with it. So the fact that we don't read these books, we don't treat them as having any practical knowledge, we don't know of them, makes us think that oh, these things could not happen, did not happen, and it's all a figment of a overactive imagination. But these things happened, and now I am happy to report that there are people who are technical people, not historians like me, but technical people who are giving you technical meanings of all this. And the lectures and books of Ashok Nene will be a good step to start looking at all this. Otherwise, the other sources that we have are, some of our rishis, Agastya, Jamdagni, Vashisht, etc., are supposed to be the people from whom this whole metallurgical knowledge came. My favorite book, the Arthashastra, has lots and lots of detail of how to extract ores, what to do with them, how to qualify, how to organize them, decide on their quality, what price to give them, etc. There was a special department of mines, department of metallurgy, and it has, for a person who just simply wants a flavor, just go to volume 2 of Arthashastra translation by R.P. Kangle and read the section on mining and metallurgy. It will give you a rough idea. I've already told you about the Samrangan Sutradhar. There is also an important Brihat Sanhita by Varaha Mihir. One day, Utkarsh, we should just focus on this Brihat Sanhita because it's another encyclopedia like the Arthashastra, but I don't mention it as much. Then another important one is Bhrigu Sanhita. If you listen to Ashok Nene's lectures, he even has an entire list of the books that you can refer to understand metallurgy. So this is, I don't know, to me it seems very impressive and also a little sad. So in one of his lectures, Ashok Nene said that this addition of biomass to iron to make it into steel is something that is now patented by an American. So you can't do it. It's only that American who can make it and sell it. So I actually went and explored that patent yesterday, and indeed, yes,
mm,
his patent is for addition of any biomass. So today, if I want to use this knowledge and get a patent for leaves and twigs of Cassia auriculara to make steel from iron, I can't do it. It's already patented. And sometimes these very rudimentary, seemingly rudimentary methods yield results which are astonishing. For
mm,
instance,
mm,
1.5% carbon in wood steel. That's a
mm,
very high degree of carbon for steel which comes from the 6th century BCE. How did it happen? What was done? So it is obviously because of the addition of certain other chemicals or certain other substances in it, which I shall not detail because I am not a metallurgist. What I want to tell you is that now that the analysis of wood steel has been done, it has been found that the greater concentration of carbon can happen because there is somehow the construction of carbon nanotubes inside the structure of that wood steel, which holds it all together and does not let it break. So from where did this whole technology of making nanotubes come? Was it kind of one off? Nobody knew what they were doing, they just did it. Was it something they knew? Was it knowledge that they found out and then it just
mm,
went from generation to generation? And just because we didn't call it nanotubes doesn't mean nanotechnology was not there. Just because we didn't call it nanotechnology doesn't mean it wasn't there. For example, take
mm,
shahad, honey, pure honey. Pure honey, if you mix it into anything or use it with anything, it has this property of breaking things down into their nanoparticles. So that's why it's used a lot in making of Ayurvedic bhasma. It's also used a lot in metallurgy. So if you read some of these manuals and see how shahad is used for different processes which are done to minerals, then you will see that without calling it so, there was a lot of nanotechnology being used. In fact, again, Utkarsh, we should have one session on nanotechnology in many different areas of STEM, whether it be medicine, whether it be metallurgy, whether it be cosmetics, perfumery, so many things. So things exist. We don't name them, we don't claim them, therefore they go away from us. That's what happens.
Yeah. And of course, you had the good luck of being conquered for a while with an
Yeah.
active agenda to suppress it. So that's kind of explanation.
And Utkarsh, all this suddenly comes home to you. So last year or year before last, I went for a week to London just to study in the British Library. So I was doing some research of my own over there. And what did I find? That okay, somebody had gone there and gone to visit one of the tribes of Madhya Pradesh and just picked up their entire pharmacopoeia and brought it back. And then that pharmacopoeia was used, commercially exploited, used for making medicines, cosmetics, XYZ, what have you. And that tribe got nothing, no money, no credit, nothing at all. And that pharmacopoeia, and I saw just one, the British Library is huge. So there are literally thousands of things like that, stolen material, still sitting in the British Library and the British Museum, of course. And if you read now, there are many people who will give the credit of understanding the process. The people who understood the process did do it after observing the local steel making, which was being done in India. Whether it be Huntsman or Bessemer, they did have previous experience of seeing all these things happening in India, and they definitely took it from India to UK. Then they industrialized the whole, what can I say, the whole process and the scale, and stopped it from being made in India. So then, after the 19th century, what did we become? I mean, we could not make any iron and steel. Till when?
Mm.
Till the 1920s, when Jamshedji Tata decided that he would set up the Tata Iron and Steel Company in Jamshedpur. So can you imagine? We went to zero, nada, nothing.
Mm.
And apart from that, all these things being thrown at us, a backward society, non-technological, no industrialization, missed the industrial revolution. Did we miss the industrial revolution, or was our own knowledge taken away to create the industrial revolution while severing us from the fruits of that industrial revolution? So, well, that's my rant. Any questions?
No, I think very, very clear, very interesting. As always, something that you did not know has an Indian connection. We find not just an Indian connection, but an Indian creation. So, yeah, very interesting.
Good, good. I hope all the audio visuals were not too confusing. For me, it was a little confusing because I had too many of them, but I hope they added to the whole experience.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely did.
So people do give us a leg up this time. Last week's
Hmm.
episode seems to be kind of like a gap. So
Hmm.
do give us a leg up this time. Like,
Watch,
subscribe,
share.
share. Yeah, yes, please. And just push us to 50,000. We are still stuck on 46. Push us to
Hmm.
50,000.
Not just
And
50, 100, please.
okay, okay. Shall we walk before we can run, or shall we start sprinting at once?
We can dream of sprinting first.
Yes. So this
Okay,
was a
good. Should we?
wonderful
Yeah,
session. Very interesting
yeah.
for me. And absolute, this is what I love about history and the past and research. Shows you so many connections between today and yesterday, which just make you feel that there is a continuity to things. And I like living in the past. When the past becomes the present, even better.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, should we end it here?
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful talking to
Okay,
all of you. See you again next time. Namaskar.
take care.